I, 28 female, and my husband Mike, 30 male, have been in a loving relationship for almost 6 years. We met when I had first joined my job because he was more experienced than me. He would help me out immensely. From the very beginning, Mike knew that I didn't come from a good family. I had to fight for what I wanted and do odd jobs here and there to save up money for myself. Both my parents were into drugs and hardly did anything for me. Hence, when I went to college, I moved out, cut them off, and never looked back. They would sometimes try to get in touch with me if they needed any money, and because of that, I had changed my number and address several times. When I started working with Mike, he was exceptionally kind and sweet to me. I remember once I had worn a shirt to my office which apparently had two small holes that I didn't notice, but Mike noticed them and bought me a new shirt to change into so that our coworkers would not find out. When it rained or snowed, he would pick me up from my place, even though my place was more than an hour away from his, because he knew I had to walk a lot to get the bus. I would sometimes skip lunch, not just because I wanted to save money, but also while growing up. I never had enough to eat three proper meals a day, so it had become quite of a habit as an adult. However, Mark would always bring me lunch and insist on eating with me to make sure that I was properly fed. Like I said, my husband was sweet to me, and it didn't take long for me to fall in love with him. The only thorn in our relationship was his family. For some context, Mike comes from an exceptionally wealthy family. The sort of family where you have multiple cars, a vacation home, and you go for cruise vacations during the summer. He and his sister went to private school and never had to worry about paying anything themselves. In fact, his dad has told him several times as to why he was even doing a job, because the kind of money they have can set him up for life. But Mike insists that he likes his job and wants to live life with a purpose. Anyways, when Mike introduced me to his family, he had told me that they can be cold and unwelcoming, but they would eventually warm up to me. I went to meet them for the first time, keeping this in mind. I wore my best dress and heels and made sure to present myself in the most polite and respectful manner possible. His father greeted me politely, while his mother didn't even bother shaking my hand. His sister, Kayla, looked at me up and down and smirked as if I looked like a clown. I felt so humiliated, but I thought of what Mike had told me and let it slide. Throughout the evening, I tried my best to engage in conversation and to show genuine interest in their lives and interests. I complimented his mother's cooking and praised his father's choice of decor and his collected art pieces. However, every time I said something good about his art, his mother would scoff and comment something like, "As if someone like you would know anything about art." Now, I did grow up poor, but that doesn't mean that I wasn't interested in art, so her comments seriously hurt me. Mike would squeeze my hand every once in a while, pleading with me to keep my cool. When it came time for dinner, his mother insisted that I should be seated away from Mike, since she and Kayla wanted to be near him. I sat next to father-in-law, and he was quite open-minded and polite, so we had a good conversation. Throughout the evening, Kayla and mother-in-law were fawning over Mike and completely ignoring me. The three of them were busy having conversations with each other. At one point, Kayla knowingly started talking about one of Mike's exes, whom she was still friends with. She said how the ex is apparently looking the best that she has ever looked, and started showing Mike pictures of that girl in bikinis from their recent trip. Mike told his sister to stop, but Kayla laughed at his discomfort and told him that he could always slide into the ex's DMs if he wanted to, because apparently she still has a soft corner for him. I was growing increasingly uncomfortable, and I guess father-in-law noticed that too, so he asked Kayla to stop talking as well. However, his efforts were met with resistance from Mike's mother, who seemed to take offense at his interference. I was so uncomfortable with their whole family dynamics that when Mike excused himself from the table and asked me to come with him so he could show me his childhood room, I was grateful to escape the awkward situation. I followed Mike out of the dining room and up the stairs to his childhood sanctuary. Later in his room, Mike apologized to me about his sister. He told me that she had always been this way, even when they were growing up, and would always push him to date one of her friends, telling him how he should marry someone only she was comfortable with. I could sense that he was genuinely apologetic, so I let it go and informed him it was best that we left. He agreed. It wasn't until later, as we were saying our goodbyes, that Mike's father pulled me aside. His expression softened, and he admitted that he had been skeptical of me at first, but my sincerity and efforts to connect had won him over. He apologized for his initial coldness and assured me that I was welcome in their home any time. He told me to not take mother-in-law's and Kayla's words to heart, and that he was happy Mike had found someone like me. I felt relieved after hearing those words. Ever since then, I knew that it would take a lot of effort from me to impress my mother-in-law and sister-in-law if I ever wanted to be accepted by them. However, the situation never changed. As Mike's and my relationship progressed, his mother and sister would continuously dissuade him from dating me. I remember once for my birthday, Mike and I were supposed to go on a long drive to the beach where we would be having a romantic picnic. I was really excited to spend the day with him. However, in the morning, his sister called him, telling him how she needed to see him urgently since something had happened to her. He let me know, and I immediately asked him to go and visit her because we really believed her. However, it turns out she had just called him as a prank, and there was in fact nothing urgent. She insisted on him staying for the day, and when he refused, telling her that it was my birthday and he wanted to spend the day with me, she laughed and told him that it was exactly why she had called him, so he had an excuse to not spend the day with me. Mike was so pissed at her that he stopped talking to her for months after that. His sister would then angrily send me texts calling me various names and telling me that she wanted to kill me because I was coming in between her and her brother. I would, of course, show these messages to Mike, and this would make him more pissed. It was only later that year in Christmas, after mother-in-law intervened, that Mike agreed to forgive Kayla. However, she never once apologized to me for all the harassment. When Kayla got married young to her then-boyfriend Joe, she refused to invite me to her wedding, telling Mike how he could instead come to her event single and meet some of her friends. Mike refused to go without me, so in the end she had no choice but to include me in the guest list. For her wedding, I wore a long pink floor-length dress that Mike and I had picked out for me, since this was a grand event and we were all supposed to dress well. He did tell me how incredibly beautiful I looked, and during my sister-in-law's event, several other guests, including father-in-law, complimented me as well. Kayla later confronted me about how I had ruined her wedding by upstaging her, even though other guests also wore floor-length dresses. She yelled at me and Mike that I had knowingly dressed that way to get all the male attention. Mike tried to pacify her, telling her how that was not our intention, but Kayla refused to listen. She got even nastier to me after that incident. Over the years, mother-in-law and sister-in-law have insulted my appearance, telling me that I look poor, calling me a fat pig when I gained a couple of pounds, making fun of me and my family background in front of their family friends, and overall have never changed their distaste for me, no matter how much I have tried to stay polite. Hence, during the 4th year of my relationship with Mike, I stopped trying altogether as their behavior was starting to affect my self-confidence, and there were only so many shots I could take about my appearance. I had a long conversation with Mike and put my foot down. I stopped going with Mike for his family dinners or family events and never responded to sister-in-law and mother-in-law's messages anymore. I ignored them just the way they had ignored me over the years, and my mental health significantly improved. Mike understood and supported my decision, even though mother-in-law told him that I was being disrespectful for not visiting them anymore and that I was not wifely enough to get married to. However, despite what his family thought, last year Mike proposed to me. The proposal was a moment of pure joy and love. He had prepared everything for the day and was so nervous when he popped the question. I had no doubt in my mind when I told him yes. Later, when he told his family about it, his father congratulated us while his mother simply told him that she hoped he had given this a lot of thought, otherwise he was going to regret it. Mike asked her to not be rude since she was on speaker, and then she begrudgingly congratulated me also. I guess she finally accepted that she had no choice and that I would be a part of her son's life moving forward. When Kayla found out, she had a much more strong reaction. She apparently told Mike that he needed to get a prenup with me, telling him how poor people like me can suck the money out of anyone. That was not only offensive, but it shocked Mike as well about how low his sister thought about me. He told her firmly that if she didn't like the fact that he was getting married to me, then she was welcome to not attend. Kayla and he fought a bit more, and Kayla even called me a bloodthirsty gold digger. However, 2 days later, she sent me a text message apologizing to me for everything, and I thought maybe she and mother-in-law had talked and understood that there was nothing that she could say or do at this point to keep her brother away from me. I did tell Mike that I would be open to signing a prenup before our marriage because I wasn't marrying him for the money. I was marrying him because he was kind and supportive of me, and that is all that I have wanted in my life. I had a good job, and I was happy with what I had, so I didn't need anything more from him. Mike assured me that he knew my heart and he was never going to ask me to sign a prenup. As the wedding was approaching, I wanted to look my best, so I started to work out rigorously. I would sometimes post after gym selfies on my social media, and they were perfectly appropriate pictures. I never posted any racy pictures. However, one weekend, Mike came back home after his family dinner and told me how Kayla and his mom had told him that I must be cheating on him since I was knowingly posting all these pictures to get attention from other men. He went on to say how he stood up for me and told them that he didn't mind the pictures, but Kayla told him that this is how women start to cheat on their partners, which then made him think. He asked me up front if I was cheating on him, and I was taken aback by his question. I firmly told him no, and how I was even offended that he would ask me such a question. He started to apologize to me and told me how his sister and mother got into his head and he never would have questioned me otherwise. To give some context, my account is private and I have more female followers in my account than male. So to this day, I have no idea why would mother-in-law and Kayla even say something like that to Mike. During the wedding, mother-in-law and Kayla did everything that they could to cause even more issues. Kayla kept saying how she wanted to be a bridesmaid, but I refused point blank. So then mother-in-law called me and chastised me for not including Kayla and how bad it would look to the family. I pointed out to her that Kayla never included me in her wedding party either, but she told me that Kayla is going to be my sister-in-law, so I have to include her, otherwise she would not be paying for our wedding. This led to a huge fight when I told Mike everything. He talked with father-in-law, who assured us that it was his money and mother-in-law had no say in our wedding whatsoever. I can only imagine mother-in-law's face and how she must have felt when she would have learned that her attempt to manipulate our wedding plans had failed. Our wedding happened after this without any more incidents or interference by sister-in-law and mother-in-law. Mike and I are still going strong, and I thought everything was good between us. However, something has happened recently that has made me question everything. I never thought I would find myself in this situation. It all started when I found out 3 months ago that I was pregnant with twins. Mike was as pleasantly surprised as me. We were both filled with excitement and happiness. We had been trying for a baby ever since we got married, and the news of not just one, but two little ones on the way felt like a dream come true. Mike insisted on having a family get together where he would announce my pregnancy, even though I wanted something low key. I understood his excitement of becoming a father, so I agreed. When Mike and I announced I was pregnant during the party, everyone immediately came over to hug us and congratulate us. However, sister-in-law and mother-in-law looked pissed and stared daggers at me. For context, Kayla got married before us, so she has been trying to get pregnant for a long time. However, I have heard from Mike that she is infertile and basically barren. She and her husband Joe have tried everything, but to no success. Mike, Joe, and father-in-law have tried to convince sister-in-law to adopt if she wants children so much. But Kayla refuses to listen. She says she doesn't want to raise a kid from the streets. So I guess she wasn't happy when she found out that I had gotten pregnant. I was aware of sister-in-law's personal issue, and it was also one of the reasons why I didn't want to make the announcement in front of everyone. Because regardless of my equation with her, I did sympathize as a woman for her condition. When Mike's relatives started to ask about the baby shower, and if we knew the baby's gender and such, Kayla burst out crying in front of everyone. She rushed into the washroom and locked herself there. As you can imagine, everyone's mood immediately soured. Mike and mother-in-law begged her to open the door, but Kayla refused. After 30 minutes of them begging, Kayla came out with red puffy eyes. She looked at me directly and told me that I should have talked to her first before making the announcement, since she couldn't have a child of her own. I tried explaining to her that I never intended to make her feel bad, but she ignored me and walked out of the party with Joe. Mother-in-law later chastised me about how selfish I am and how I always make everything about me without caring about other people's feelings. After the party, Mike did apologize to me and assured me that he would talk to mother-in-law and Kayla and make sure that they would know that this was all his idea, and he never thought that our announcement would hurt his sister so much. I still feel bad about Kayla, but my husband assured me that it wasn't my fault at all. The next weekend, when he went to his parents' place for dinner, I stayed behind as usual since I wanted nothing to do with his family conversations. I have no idea what they talked about, but Mike came back home telling me how he had ended up apologizing to Kayla since she was really hurt about everything. He recounted how Kayla had shared the emotional toll of her struggles, detailing the countless medical tests and sleepless nights spent in tears for years. As he spoke, I couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. Despite the tensions between us, Kayla was still family, and the thought of her suffering weighed heavily on my conscience. I realized that beneath the facade of resentment and animosity, there was a woman who was hurting and in need of compassion. Mike told me how I should reach out to her, and I agreed. I messaged Kayla and apologized to her for not giving her a heads up about my pregnancy before the party. I told her that I wanted to resolve things between us before my twins were born so that we could start fresh as a family. To my surprise, Kayla responded with unexpected warmth and understanding. She thanked me for reaching out and acknowledged her own role in the strained relationship between us. She expressed her genuine happiness for my pregnancy and reassured me that she wanted nothing more than to mend our relationship and be supportive during this special time. Kayla offered to throw a baby shower for me when the time came, telling me how she has never had a chance to do it for anyone, so she would love to organize one for me. I graciously agreed. In the months leading up to the baby shower, I noticed that both Kayla and my mother-in-law were unusually kind and sweet to me. They would regularly call me asking about my health and send me flowers with cards that said, "Hope Ma Bear is feeling okay," or "Can't wait to see the twins." It was definitely surprising and a bit unsettling because up until that point, our relationship had been strained, to say the least. Suddenly, both Kayla and my mother-in-law were acting completely out of character, showering me with love. It felt like a sudden shift, and I couldn't shake the feeling of unease that accompanied it. However, I thought maybe they were making an effort to mend things between us before the twins were born. I never imagined there could be anything sinister behind it. Despite my suspicions, I tried to remain optimistic and hoped that maybe we were turning a new leaf as a family. Mike continued to visit his family for dinner every weekend, and everything seemed fine on the surface. On the day of my baby shower, I was surprised to see that Kayla had actually listened to all my suggestions and kept them in mind while organizing the event. The event was everything I had hoped for and more, with friends and family gathered to celebrate the imminent arrival of our twins. Unlike typical baby showers, the men of the family were invited to the event also. Father-in-law had brought multiple gifts for the twins. We were all having a lot of fun and playing baby shower games. Throughout the afternoon, Kayla was polite while engaging with the guests and ensuring that everything ran smoothly. During the middle of one of our games, I had to excuse myself to go to the washroom. After I finished my deed, I was just coming out of the washroom when I heard my husband and mother-in-law furiously arguing in the hallway in hushed tones. Curiosity piqued. I paused for a moment, straining to hear their words. They didn't know I was listening. At first, I thought it was just innocent chatter, maybe about baby names or nursery decor. But as I listened closer, my heart sank. Mother-in-law was asking my husband if he had a conversation with me yet regarding their plan with the twins. Mike told her to lower her voice since someone could hear them, but mother-in-law told him that the time was coming near and he needed to man up and talk to me. Mike told her that he was working on it and that it wasn't an easy conversation to have. Mother-in-law then told him that he needed to have this discussion before the twins were born, otherwise they wouldn't be able to give one of the twins to Kayla on time for her 27th birthday. She told him how he had already agreed to sister-in-law's demands and had no way out since she had been looking forward to getting a child for months now. My eyes widened in shock as I processed these snippets of conversation I had overheard. My heart raced with a mix of disbelief and growing dread as the gravity of their discussion sunk in. The realization hit me like a ton of bricks. They were discussing giving one of our twins away to my sister-in-law as a birthday gift. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It felt like a punch to the gut. I stood there, frozen, as they continued to talk about their plans as if it was the most normal thing in the world. My mind raced with a million thoughts and emotions. Anger, hurt, sadness, but most of all, betrayal. I had thought my husband, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law were happy about our pregnancy, about our twins. But now I have realized that their happiness wasn't because of our growing family. It was because of their twisted plan to give away one of our babies. At that moment, I felt like I didn't even know my husband anymore. How could he betray me like this? How could he even consider giving away our child? Our babies were not gifts to be given away. They were our children, our flesh and blood. I waited patiently for them to finish their conversation as I didn't want to be caught, and then I slowly walked out of the bathroom. I was shaking in fear and anger, however, and I held it together as best I could in front of others. Since the baby shower, I have been racking my head to come up with a plan so I can escape this situation as fast as I can. I can't endanger my twins in the future. This family is crazy and I can't even trust my husband anymore. I want to scream at him every time I see him, but I'm trying to pretend that all is well so I can work on my escape plan. However, because of my pregnancy hormones, I am a bit worried that I will be the a-hole for leaving my husband without even asking for an explanation. I don't mind being a single mother, but should I give the father of my children a chance to explain himself before tearing apart the family? Update 1. Thank you everyone for your advice and suggestions. I read through all the comments and I have made up my mind now. I want to assure you that I will never let anyone take away my baby from me. I have reached out to my best friend of many years and I have asked for her help. She is as shocked as me that my husband could plan such a thing with his family. She has agreed to come and help me move my things so that I can live with her while I file for divorce from my husband. Tonight is the last night I will stay in the same house as Mike, and tomorrow I will leave without a note or an explanation because he doesn't deserve one. Update 2. It's been 2 weeks since my last update. I wanted to update everyone on what has happened since my last post. As I mentioned before, I made the decision to file for divorce from Mike after overhearing his conversation with his mother about their plan regarding our twins. It was a heartbreaking decision, but I knew it was the right one for me and my babies. With the help of my best friend, I gathered all my belongings and left our house while Mike was at work. It was a difficult and emotional moment when I walked out of the doors, as I never imagined a day would come when I would leave my husband. But I know I have to prioritize the safety and well-being of myself and my unborn children. I have since filed for a divorce, even though Mike has tried to reach out to me multiple times. I haven't blocked him, as I do want to be cordial to him until the divorce is done. Since Mike has no idea that I overheard him with his mother, he has sent me several text messages accusing me of betraying him and how his family was right all along. I haven't sent him a single explanation because I know no matter what I say, him and his family will try to gaslight and manipulate me, so for now they can think whatever they want. The truth will come out during the divorce proceedings. I have blocked sister-in-law and mother-in-law, although I do feel a bit guilty about not answering father-in-law's calls. I have no idea whether he was involved in this plan or not, so I can't take any chances. I have spent the last few days just crying while my best friend has sat with me and never left my side. She has assured me that I am not a bad mother for leaving such a man and has tried to lessen my guilt. Since I will be a single mother from now on, I plan on going back to work as soon as I can. My best friend, who works from home, has agreed to babysit my twins when I do join the workforce. However, I have insisted on paying her for her time, as babysitting twins won't be easy. I know this isn't a solid plan, and I wish I had reliable parents who could help me out in this situation, but unfortunately I don't. Also, my best friend will only help me look after the kids until I can get my divorce from Mike, so then, with the child support, I can hire a proper nanny. I know it won't be easy, but I am determined to create a safe and loving environment for my twins. I am grateful for the support and encouragement I have received from all of you during this challenging time. Update 3. Hello everyone. It's been 6 months since my last update. A lot of things have happened since then. First of all, I have given birth already, and now I am the proud mother of my beautiful twins, Jackson and Vinny. I was so nervous before giving birth, but the moment I held my beautiful twins in my arms for the first time, all of my worries melted away. They are my everything, and I am glad that I took them away from that crazy family. My divorce from Mike was finalized, and despite his pleading, he was not granted custody of the children. He did find out during the proceeding exactly why I had left him, and he was shocked that I had found out about his plan. He tried to apologize, to explain himself, telling me how he was compelled and pressured by his family every day and how he had no choice, but I was further disappointed with his cowardice. It turns out the father-in-law did know about everything, and although he had tried to dissuade sister-in-law and mother-in-law, no one had listened to him. I am so disgusted by this family that I have felt no remorse since divorcing Mike. I didn't ask for a single penny for alimony, but he has agreed to pay a hefty amount for child support, which will be enough for me to provide the best for my children. Mother-in-law and sister-in-law did try to get in touch with me and even showed up during the divorce proceedings, screaming and yelling at me for taking away the twins from them. They told me how they could have provided my children with everything and that I was a bad mother for being so selfish. In the end, they had to be restrained by the guards. I'm glad that they embarrassed themselves publicly because it helped me get a restraining order against them. Since the divorce, Mike has tried to remain in touch with me, pleading for a chance to talk and reconcile. But I can never trust him again around my children. With the help of my best friend and a supportive network of friends and family, I've been able to navigate the challenges of single parenthood these past few months. Recently, I have made the decision to move out of the city entirely as I want to create a fresh start for myself and my children, far away from the toxicity and manipulation of Mike's family. I know as long as I live in the same city, they might try to get in touch with my twins, and I don't want that. With full custody of my twins, I have the freedom to build a new life wherever I choose, and I intend to make the most of that opportunity. Moving forward, I am going to be focused on myself and my baby, so there will be no further updates. Stay tuned for more stories from our girl relationships.
All right, everyone's presentations are done. Nick, the manager, said as he tried to move the discussion forward. Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something. Nick interrupted me and began to speak. There's apparently someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. His lackey, Mike, of course, agreed with Nick. I'm leaving. After leaving the meeting room, I started to shut down my computer. I noticed that an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking, there's no point in speaking up, no one will listen, I went home quietly. The next day, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. He was staring at his computer screen, his face pale. Nick? Is something wrong? Mike looked at the screen with him. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Knowing the reason for Mike's distress, I thought to myself, serves them right. My name is Adam. My mother passed away when I was in the 9th grade, and I was raised by my father. Well, you could hardly call it being raised. After my mother passed, my father changed. He drowned his sorrows in alcohol, and though he still went to work, he squandered our living expenses on horse racing. Because of that, I had to start working part-time as soon as I entered high school. Every month, I went to the convenience store with bills in hand that couldn't be auto-deducted from my father's account. Even though I endured it because I didn't want to be alone, I reached my limit in my 2nd year of high school and dropped out. I found a live-in job at a distant inn. Thank you for everything. The day I left home, my father, still staring at the TV, spoke. Take care. That was our last conversation. Back then, 18 wasn't the age of majority, so I needed my father's permission to work, and I couldn't hide my place of employment. Yet, my father never visited me even once. I kept working just to survive, and before I knew it, I was 42. Years of hard work paid off, and I was transferred to the headquarters. I was thrilled to be recognized by the company, as I thought I'd be working in the field until retirement due to my lack of formal education. Listen up. Our work can change the future of our employees. Don't drag us down. On my first day after the transfer, Nick, dressed in an expensive suit, spoke sternly. There was a reason for this. Our inn was located in a prominent tourist destination, known so well that everyone in the state could sing its commercial jingle. At its peak, we had 5 locations within the state. But that was long ago. Due to financial difficulties and aging facilities, only the place where I had worked for many years and the original establishment remained. I was prepared to lose my job anytime, but now there was a glimmer of hope. With the rise of social media, the tourist area where the inn was located started gaining attention again. Depending on how hard the sales department, where I was transferred, worked, We could either thrive or be forced to give up this prime location to the new hotel chains continuously popping up. For Nick, who had switched careers from another industry to strengthen our sales, this was a battle he couldn't afford to lose. I understood why he had to be strict. "I will do my best." Nick sneered at my enthusiastic declaration. "Did you not hear what I said?" "I'm sorry." I thought I was listening carefully. Out of habit from years of customer service, I apologized reflexively, though I had no idea what had offended him. Someone was watching me with a smirk. In this department, there are those who are expected to excel and those who have been shoved here because they have nowhere else to go. You are the latter. It was Mike, the section chief. He's 7 years younger, at 35. But he was called to headquarters much earlier than I was and had been moving around within the headquarters ever since. I'm not jealous, but I can't accept that he's my boss. Graduating from a prestigious university, he has an unusually high pride and caused many problems as a newbie, making things very difficult for me when I was the front desk leader. When I found out Mike was transferred to the sales department a month before me, I was disheartened. Mike is right. With just a middle school diploma, there's not much you can do. Don't even think about achieving results. As if I didn't exist, Nick remarked, "I'm thirsty." Mike eagerly ran to the coffee maker. It seems Mike is Nick's lackey. I regretted being happy about my transfer to headquarters, wishing I had stayed on site forever. Send a direct mail to every company on this list by the end of the day. Nick only assigned me tasks that even a new graduate could handle. What? There are over 1,000 companies. You want me to send to all of them by today? Yes, if you and your fellow misfits split the work, even those with nowhere else to go should finish by today. I glanced at the employees typing away expressionlessly. They were worn out from customer service, only thinking about leaving on time, or were women reassigned after having children, with zero motivation for work. Even Sam, a new graduate from the same university as Mike, who was supposed to be among the expected achievers, had no enthusiasm for the job, having joined the company wanting to do customer service. "I don't care what they say, I plan to quit any time," he said. Only Nick and Mike were highly motivated, making all the decisions between the two of them. I originally only wanted to work at the inn to survive and had no particular attachment to this job. I swallowed my words, thinking I had no right to reprimand them. About a month after the transfer, Nick told us with a frustrated look. "To commemorate the 50th anniversary, we've decided to create a plan exclusive for one group per day. Originally, Mike and I were supposed to come up with it, but our president, Mr. Thompson, insists on hearing everyone's opinions. So, you all get a chance." As Nick explained, Mike began handing out prints. Make sure not to embarrass Nick. If your ideas are half-baked, you'll have to redo them. It seemed that they had printed his handwritten notes by Mr. Thompson, which included several questions and a section for free responses. It made sense why Nick had to seek our input, given that all responses had to be submitted to Mr. Thompson. We were given a week to think about it, and a meeting was scheduled to compile our ideas. My plan is to let guests enjoy both the old and modern America. Nick began the presentations. Guests would watch a master confectioner at a nearby traditional sweet shop make sweets in front of them. The welcome drink would be premium tea in a bottle. Nick's plan was certainly attractive. After his presentation, Nick called on us to present in the order we were seated. Just as I stood up for my turn. "All right, everyone's presentations are done." "Excuse me, I haven't. I recently found out something." Nick interrupted me. "There's someone in this department who didn't graduate high school and is just a part-timer." He was likely talking about me. I joined the company as a part-timer and was made a full-time employee when I turned 20. That was 20 years ago, so Nick and Mike probably had no chance to know until recently. Meetings should be for employees only. Absolutely right. After that, Nick kept creating opportunities to solicit everyone's opinions, purposefully excluding me from speaking. The meeting unexpectedly heated up and went past the scheduled end time. A few people asked to leave, and the discussion continued with the remaining few. "Still here?" Normally, you'd leave in that situation. Though I had no attachment to the job initially, hearing kind words from customers made me want to make them happier. For someone like me, with nowhere to go, the inn was my home and customer service was my life. I felt pathetic about my current self. I'm leaving. I left the conference room and started shutting down my computer. I noticed an email had arrived, not in my personal inbox, but in the company's shared email. Thinking no one would listen to what I had to say anyway, I quietly went home. The next day, while preparing the DM as instructed, I heard a commotion from Nick's desk. In his haste to stand up, he hit his knee on the desk. He stared at his computer screen, his face pale. "Nick! What's wrong?" Mike, thinking he should be the first to rush over, approached Nick while still wearing his coat. He peered at the screen with Nick. And he turned even paler than Nick. Why is he so angry? Who is responsible for this company? Nick, more irritated than ever, asked, and Mike answered without checking. Probably Sam. Sam wasn't there because he was attending a morning training session for new hires. Nick gave up on getting angry and returned his gaze to the screen. They were looking at an email that arrived right after the end of the working day yesterday. Apparently, no one, including me, had checked it before leaving. The email was from a large company that used us for their annual employee trips. The president and executives of that company also frequently used our services personally. President of the company, Mr. Mason himself, had declared that neither he nor his company would ever use our services again. Well, some companies cancel their employee trips or stop using our services due to financial struggles. Let's just move on. Mike kept wiping the sweat from his forehead with a handkerchief. Knowing why Mike was so agitated, I quietly watched their interaction. Do you know how much revenue we get from that company? We can find other guests to fill the rooms, but we'll lose the banquet costs, gift shop revenue, rental car fees, and more. Moreover, the gifts were supposed to be prepared by the traditional confectionery shop involved in Nick's proposed plan. If it's known that we incurred such a huge loss at this critical time, Nick's position in the company would be jeopardized. Nick took a deep breath, seemingly trying to calm himself. All right, Mike. Go to New York right now and apologize to Mr. Mason. What? You're coming with me, right? I have urgent work to do. I trust you, which is why I'm entrusting this to you. Please. Mike, believing Nick's sincerity, agreed with a determined look on his face, saying, yes. That's Nick for you. Even if Mike went to apologize, Nick would shift all the blame onto him if the client didn't change their mind. Well, it was Mike's fault to begin with, so it served him right. About 3 hours later, Sam answered a call from somewhere and repeatedly apologized, saying, I'm very sorry. Everyone watched to see what was happening. After ending the call, he informed Nick with a weary tone. When Mike arrived at the client's company, he only made things worse, further infuriating Mr. Mason. He was demanding, get his boss here immediately. It was no wonder Sam was exhausted, dealing with such a call right after returning from training. What is that idiot doing? All right, Adam, you're coming with me. If sacrificing Mike didn't work, then I must be next. Normally, I'd want to refuse at all costs, but I saw an opportunity in this situation. If I can be of assistance, I'd be happy to join you. I obediently followed Nick, and we flew to New York. When we introduced ourselves at the reception, it became clear how serious the situation was. As the receptionist personally escorted us to the president's office. Angry voices leaked through the door, making both Nick and me uneasy. Excuse me. I'm Nick, the supervisor. I understand my subordinate has caused you trouble, and I deeply apologize. Nick, with his experience in the corporate world, knew enough to offer an apology before excuses. However, his customer service skills left much to be desired. I sighed as I saw Mike trembling like a small dog in the corner of the room. What kind of training are you giving your subordinates? Mr. Mason glared at Nick with a red face. The intensity of his gaze made even Nick take a step back. Regrettably, I joined this company only 2 years ago and was unaware of Mike's issues. I should have identified his shortcomings sooner. Indeed. I should have realized sooner. No sensible person would come to apologize and then give a lengthy presentation on the drawbacks of not using their inn. Nick froze, his mouth slightly open. Suspecting the worst, I picked up the documents that had fallen to the floor. It seemed Mike hastily prepared these documents on the plane, listing the disadvantages. Disadvantage 1: if you change the venue for the company trip, employees might suspect it's for cost-cutting reasons, leading to a negative impression. Reading it aloud half-jokingly, Nick snatched the papers from my hand and checked the contents with a furious expression. Among the stack of documents was a receipt from a nearby convenience store's copy machine. I felt a pang of dread, hoping he hadn't shown the receipt as well. What do you think he said when I asked what kind of nerve he had to do this? I'm very sorry. Faced with the dire situation, Nick must have thought there was nothing left to do but apologize. In a voice smaller than I'd ever heard from him, he uttered words of apology. He said, "I'm a Harvard graduate. I don't believe I said anything wrong." Mike! What have you done? Forgetting his plan to pin the blame on Mike, Nick yelled loudly, even in front of Mr. Mason. "I didn't do anything wrong." "You're still saying that? Look at him." Mike pointed at me with a shaking hand. "I was assigned to headquarters in my 20s and now I'm a section chief. This guy only made it to headquarters at 42. Everything I've done proves I was right. So why are we losing the contract?" Having said his piece, Mike collapsed to the floor. "Of course. You were sent there because you had nowhere else to go." Mike never expected to hear such words from someone he looked down upon. He lunged at me, and Nick hurriedly stepped in to stop him. "Mr. Thompson told me Mike is a quick thinker, and to take good care of him." There's no way he was pushed aside. "Don't make things worse here." "He didn't say quick thinker, he said only quick-witted, didn't he?" I don't remember that part." I recalled the many troubles Mike caused when he was a newbie. When Mike was on the front line, his pride was so high that he never apologized to customers. Customer service, especially in our job, doesn't work alone. It brings both good and bad situations. If the front staff or housekeepers made mistakes, or the cleaning company didn't properly clean a room, one had to apologize to the customers regardless of personal fault. Mike, in such situations, would never apologize, insisting he wasn't at fault. This often angered customers, and as the front desk leader, I frequently had to apologize on his behalf. He caused complaints and disrupted operations, which is why he was quickly moved to headquarters. In departments where he didn't interact directly with customers, his quick thinking was beneficial and things went well. But it seemed his flaws were starting to show. Corporate reservations are supposed to be entered into the system by the sales representative. But a quick check yesterday revealed that more than 10 items were missing from the client's reservation. The handover document clearly stated what needed to be prepared. Why didn't you enter it into the system? Why do we have to give them special treatment? Filling rooms near the banquet hall, setting up all the food in advance. Specifying the brand of wine, they're too demanding. No wonder he always angered customers, I thought, feeling a headache coming on. Grouping them in rooms near the banquet hall is for our benefit too. It makes it easier for the staff to set up beds and serve breakfast since everyone's schedule is synchronized. As for the other requests, Mr. Mason suggested them to lighten our load. I didn't know that. Nick finally seemed to realize that Mike was the one who had angered the client. What did you say to them? I just told them we wouldn't give them special treatment anymore. We shouldn't waste effort on things that don't bring in money. I was utterly exasperated at his lack of understanding of customer service. Of course, we shouldn't comply with unreasonable demands. But carrying over successful practices from past stays makes customers feel remembered and enhances their experience. Good memories encourage repeat visits. That's part of our job. I looked down at Mike, who was sitting on the floor. In our job, nothing is a waste. Mr. Thompson likely moved you to the sales department, hoping you'd finally understand this. How do you think he feels now that you've failed to meet his expectations? Mike, tears in his eyes, fled the president's office. I was amazed he still hadn't apologized. You have it tough, Adam. It's okay, we're all employees of the same company. I deeply apologize for this disrespectful incident. Especially after all the care you've shown us. If it weren't for you, Adam, I really would have stopped staying here. When I heard you were moving to the sales department, I was willing to reconsider if you handled it. Seeing us talk so amicably, Nick's face contorted. Do you two know each other? Adam's service is excellent. I always requested him specifically. Normally, we don't accept specific staff requests, but we made an exception for Mr. Mason, adjusting my shifts accordingly. He had personally stayed at our hotel just before my transfer, and during casual conversation, I mentioned, I'm moving to the sales department soon. If I hadn't told him then, things could have been much worse. Please continue to take care of us. I look forward to it. On the return flight, Nick awkwardly offered me a can of beer. It's still working hours. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him for a single beer. Nick might try to pin everything on Mike and avoid any consequences. While pondering this, a startling fact came to light. Nick, the tea bottles for the plan have arrived. I handed Nick a bottle labeled with our inn's name. They look good. What are you talking about? These are plastic bottles. I had assumed we would use the trendy, high-end bottling tea. But what arrived were ordinary plastic bottles of tea with customized labels. The only unique aspect was the label, which had the inn's name, making it look customized. Upon further investigation, I discovered that a substantial amount of money was set to be paid to the tea company. It was priced like bottling tea. Does this plastic bottle really cost $100 each? The tea inside is specially blended for us. The extra cost is for that. Wouldn't it be better to use another tea company? Or is there a specific reason we must use this one? As Nick continued to make excuses, I showed him a printed email. I informed the tea company's president, Mr. Mitchell, that we discovered irregular payments and he confessed. He said you two were high school classmates and planned to split the extra money. That idiot. Why did he confess? That's not important. You should worry about yourself, this could turn into a police matter. Opening the bottle cap, I suggested. How about calming down with this tea? It supposedly has a relaxing effect. Nick drank the tea frantically. In the following days, decisions were made about their fates. Mike was reassigned to the General Affairs Department, with no chance of transfer or promotion, as per Mr. Thompson's orders. As for Nick, since the payment to the tea company hadn't yet been made, he narrowly avoided legal trouble. Instead, he was encouraged to leave the company, and to avoid further complications, Nick submitted his resignation. Rumor has it that connections between HR departments have made it difficult for him to find new employment. Even though it was good to have those two gone, something unexpected happened in the sales department. Everyone became motivated and united in refining the 50th anniversary plan. In the end, my plan was adopted. We collaborated with the Tourist Information Center to provide personalized guides. The plan, tailored to the number of guests, was truly special for the 50th anniversary. Hey, is Adam's family coming to stay? I immediately booked that special plan for my family. Sam noticed it on the reservation list and quickly picked up on it. Yes, I'm inviting my father. That's great. I might invite my parents too. I lacked the courage to face my father just as Adam. But here, with the confidence Mr. Mason praised, I felt ready. The 50th anniversary plan was a perfect opportunity to reconnect with my father. I hoped to bring back the days when we could laugh together as we once did.